This is the Our Auto Expert Podcast. Find us on air, online, on mobile, and on your smart speaker. Please subscribe at ourautoexpert.com.
Our Auto Expert. Our Auto Expert. Our Auto Expert. Our Auto Expert.
Now, here's the host of Our Auto Expert,
Our Auto Expert,
Nick Miles.
Locally created, nationally celebrated. This is the Northwest to the Southeast, America's car radio show. And if it has a throttle, we'll be happy to talk about it on air, online, on mobile, on smart speaker. This is Our Auto Expert. I'm your host, Nick Miles, along with Truck Girl Jen. You had a birthday this week.
I did.
But you didn't really celebrate it the way you wanted to.
No, not really.
Why don't we just celebrate it throughout the show?
Okay.
I'll just remind everybody they can say happy birthday to you.
And I'm 29.
Embarrassed. Are you?
No.
Can I see your driver's license, please?
No.
Why?
Because
What?
we don't need to talk about age on the air. Nobody really cares how old I am.
They don't? Apparently you do.
Mm-mm.
Wait a second. You won't give me your driver's license, but you care about how old you are.
Well, you know how old I am.
How old should you be to take somebody's license away? Or how old should the oldest that somebody should be able to drive?
If they can't drive, then
All right,
take
so
it
does it
away.
mean that has to be a test at a certain age?
What do you think?
I don't know. I'm going through this right now. I have a parent who is doing okay, but it's not going to be like this for long. That's horrible, isn't it? I feel like somehow the evil child. Would you feel like an evil child if you had to take your dad's driver's license or your mom's?
Oh, God, I'd feel awful. But
How are you going to deal with that? Time's going to come.
thanks. Thanks for putting me on the spot. You'd obviously have to have a very serious conversation. And
Doesn't work. Tried it.
Really?
Yeah.
How about a doctor's note?
No, doesn't work.
Doesn't work either?
My doctor's my best friend. It's his doctor too. No, doesn't work.
Wow.
You have to keep stepping it up. And, of course, as soon as you step it up, they push back. Because driving is an independence. Driving is a beautiful thing. It's to be American is to be able to drive.
Well,
So,
maybe autonomy cars will come out a little faster than we think. Autonomous
I
cars.
think autonomous vehicles are probably evolving as fast because people still want the freedom of being able to get out on the road and go where they want. And, calling an Uber or a
That's what I was
Lyft
gonna
is
say.
not always a great idea. I moved my parents into a house. I didn't move them. I encouraged them to move the last time they moved into a house where they were within walking distance of near facilities like grocery stores and that type of thing.
Good exercise.
It's just a little too far. It's like a mile, maybe 0.75 a mile. It's a little. My dad will come to my house and walk my dogs every day, at least a mile, but he won't walk to the grocery store.
No, because he has to carry all that stuff back, right?
All right, but he also goes grocery shopping every day. The older you get, it's mandatory you grocery shop every day. Remember
Because they have time to
Remember
go
when
grocery
Stephen
shopping.
was like 3 and you used to go to the supermarket and you used to have a shopping cart that was so full you couldn't get anything else in it?
Yes.
Because you wanted to go grocery shopping like once a month or
No,
whatever, once every 2 weeks.
Yeah, once every 2 weeks.
And diapers take up a lot of space. So.
Not at 3.
I feel weird talking about your son who's now in his mid-20s about him wearing diapers. But anyway,
Yeah, he's not wearing it.
not now. I hope he's not now. People get old. It's not pleasant to, and I sit next to my parent. I'm actually okay because he doesn't listen to the show. I sit next to my parent, and sit next to my dad. My mum never usually drives. It's usually my dad. I sit next to my dad, and I'm like, oh, watch out for this, and Dad, slow down, and everybody's braking.
Start the arm thing.
But you have an added complication. Your dad also is a motorcycle rider. Mm-hmm. That's a double scary frightening.com.
But my dad is actually, they're both, my mom and dad are very smart when it comes to driving.
I'm glad you said that. Okay, when it comes to driving.
Well, in general, yes.
My parents
okay,
are dumb.
I'm good. Yeah, no. No, my parents listen. But no, they're very smart. I mean, if they're sick or whatever, they obviously don't drive. The other one will drive. Now they're both retired. It's great, They can take care of each other.
All right, but you're still not answering the question. At some point, you're going to have this conversation. You and your sister are going to have to sit down with your parents and say, hey, Dad, or hey, Mom, don't think the world quite works the same way as you think it does. It's not everybody else's fault on the road.
I have a ways to go on that, I think.
You do? Okay.
Yeah. But your dad's feisty.
He is. He's definitely got a mouth on him.
He's feisty. I'm sure that's very
My father-in-law,
difficult.
you would meet my father-in-law. Feisty. I want to hose him off every time I see him. He's like an old Navy guy, and he's like, I'm stupid. They're all dumb. Dumb. And then
awesome.
expletive.
Yeah.
This is a question, is we love our freedom in America. We love to be able to drive. So now you have to start looking at, what do I put my parents in as a car?
Well, not a Corvette if you...
No, but you want them in a vehicle which is safe.
Exactly.
And so you have to start thinking about, hey, this vehicle will do this, and this will correct him into the middle of the lane, and this one will stop him backing out of a parking space and hit a shopping trolley. And at the Trader Joe's here near our house, they have the cart return is red. It's red plastic. So it's metal in the middle of the parking lot. There's 4 or 5 of them. Yeah. And they have red plastic down the side. That red plastic seems to get on the front fender of my dad's car more often than you can imagine. It's frightening. It's pretty sad.
Yeah, you're going to have to get the auto stop vehicle.
Yeah, so you need something that's not going to, you're not going to run into stuff. It's a difficult conversation. I've started to have it. Maybe we need to get a specialist on to talk about this. How do you tell your parents that they're too old to drive? Or your aunt, or someone else you know, or not necessarily too old, but how do you scale them back and make them safe and stop them? Because not everyone can run out and buy a new car. All right, we're going to find out about a lot on today's show. Mike Koval is going to be here. We're going to talk about the Ram trucks that were introduced at the State Fair of Texas. They were revealed there for everybody to see. Mostly trim levels, and they are nice trim levels. They got really sexy. Mike is a cool guy. I met him for the first time down there, and he's the super special VP over there at Ram. We're going to get to talk about the new Lincoln Continental, the 80th anniversary Lincoln Continental. That's the one with the coach doors, everybody. They're not called suicide doors. They're called coach doors. We'll find out about that. Perry Stern is going to join us from MSN. He's going to tell us tips on your automobile preparation for winter, and also talk about the Mercedes-Benz GLC event that we went on. And Toyota have a new Marai and some new hybrids. We'll be talking all about that. That is what's going on today's show. Now, I also have to tell you, we need to have a discussion about what I've been driving this week.
I know. I'm so excited for you to tell everybody what you've been driving.
Yeah, because it's a car that Jen's been waiting for. All right. We got that. We got more coming up. And, of course, you can get hold of us on social media. Our Auto Expert across all the social media, man. Also, find out previous shows and listen to them at ourautoexpert.com.
You're listening to Our Auto Expert.
Catch up with previous episodes of the show at our website, ourautoexpert.com. You can hear all the past shows and our automotive videos are there, our TV segments from around the country, inside car stories. You can read them at ourautoexpert.com, the whole shebang. I went for my first visit ever to the State Fair of Texas. And it's big, and it's, when we went there, it wasn't opening day. It was sort of the auto show portion of it, where a lot of manufacturers, Texas is an important market, especially for SUVs and trucks, a lot of manufacturers roll out new vehicles, show them off, because it's such an important market. But I hear the fair itself deep fries everything. They deep fry Pepsi, cookie dough, Twinkies. Yeah. Why are you rolling your eyes?
Just my stomach. I don't eat deep fried food if I can't. But
except
oh my gosh.
chicken. Do you eat deep fried chicken?
No, I pull the skin off usually.
Yeah. What fun are you?
Well,
Jordan's shaking his head then.
All I could say is I'm just super jealous that you got to see these trucks.
Wait a second. I pull the skin off, but I just eat the skin. I could leave the chicken.
Ew.
Yeah, we got to see a whole bunch of new trucks revealed, and one of the ones that were most exciting was what Ram had to offer. Joining us on the phone is Mike Koval. He's from Ram. Mike is the big cheese and the chief bottle washer at Ram. He's basically in charge of everything. Mike, you introduced several new vehicles while you were in Texas. Showed us off probably some of the sexiest trucks on the market, right?
Well, thanks, Nick. And first of all, thank you for having me. And I appreciate your reference to me as the big cheese. I'm fairly certain that they deep fry cheese down there as well.
Yes, they do. I'm sure they do.
He's a curd.
Well, yeah, it's as you pointed out, and again, thank you for having me. And good afternoon, everybody. It was we do appreciate how important the truck market is, and this year more than any other year, we've heard from our customers that personalization and customization really matters. And we believe firmly that what you drive is an extension of your personality. And so what you saw from Ram at the 2019 State Fair of Texas was the release of our new night and black appearance packages. And I have to tell you, they are just absolutely breathtaking when you see them coming down the road. And we are just really excited about the overall reception to these new packages.
So, I mean, a lot of people were taking their trucks when they bought them, and obviously chrome used to be a big thing in the last 10 years or so, and they were taking these and they were blacking everything out, and you decided to pull the trigger a little ahead of time and say, well, listen, you're going to black it all out, we might as well give you what you want, right?
Well, exactly, and it's not that chrome is going away, let me be clear. It's just that we are seeing an interesting trend in the marketplace, and frankly, we're seeing it from the competition as well, but this whole concept of monochromatic appearance packages and just, kind of making everything from the headlamps to the fender flares to the headlights and the taillights all the same color. It really makes a statement on these particular products. And we believe with our new Rebel and limited models on the light duty and the Bighorn model on the heavy duty, it really makes a statement when they're coming down the road.
I look at those, and I obviously walked around the trucks after you. You had 4 trucks that you pulled the silks off there in Texas after you did your introduction and got to walk around them. It actually makes the whole truck look completely different when you've blacked everything from the lights, the bumpers, the wheels. And it looks just so menacing. I almost feel like they should have one of those presidential CIA seals on the side of the door. They kind of look very stealth.
They do, and let's not forget that these trucks bring with them all of the things that our buyers expect from us, from performance and capability, and now you just really make a statement with the styling as well, and that's really what gets them excited. We will always be there for our customers, and at Ram, I'd be remiss if I didn't say it. This past Friday, October the 4th, marked our 10-year anniversary. So 2019 has been a bit of a milestone year for the Ram brand, as it was 10 years ago that we did become a standalone brand. And so we've kind of, dubbed this last 10 years sort of the decade of innovation. And along those lines, we're going to continue to bring new and interesting offerings that we think will bring new buyers into the brand.
I think if we zoom out maybe 10,000 feet and look at the truck market in the United States overall, there's several patterns emerging of what people want from their trucks. I noticed that we share the studios here with a Hispanic station, and I noticed the program director from the Hispanic station comes in, and this is a family man who works at a radio station. He's a program director. He has ostensibly an office or a studio job. He brings his kids in on the weekend, and what does he have? A fully decked out luxury truck. I mean, that's what he chooses to drive, and we're seeing a lot more of that now. Americans, even if they don't use, and many Americans do use their trucks for hauling and for toys and for adventures, but even if you have it as a family vehicle, Americans are starting to choose trucks.
It's really something, and you're absolutely right. We've seen this trend emerge, and from a macroeconomic perspective, with interest rates still at relatively historical lows, fuel prices relatively stable, we are seeing more folks come into the truck segment than ever before. In fact, we know that we're pulling people out of mid-sized cars, for example, and no longer, at one point in time, perhaps it was taboo to have a full-size truck to do exactly what you described, to kind of be a family vehicle. But honestly, from the beginning, Ram, we designed our new Ram 1500 to absolutely be a no-compromise truck. So you get the largest interior, and to your point, which can haul families or work crews, frankly, in all the comfort they need. The handling and the ride on the road, Nick, never been better. Cargo and trailer towing capability, like we said earlier, will always be there. And maybe most importantly, we have luxury and technology that is on par or better than many of the premium luxury manufacturers across the globe. And this new 12-inch touchscreen radio that we have in our new Ram 1500 has been an absolute game changer. And we are pulling people in from not only other competitive truck OEMs, but also from other segments, frankly, even down to the midsize car.
So let's talk about that, because you have attained what was at one point thought pretty unattainable. You quite comfortably have moved into the number 2 position as the truck seller. It always was the Ford F-150, followed by the Silverado, followed by the Ram or the Dodge, depending on what year we were talking about. And the innovation has carried you with quite big margins into that second place. Is this due to the innovations that you've put together in these trucks, or is it just the failing of perhaps the competition to match what you do?
Well, it goes back to the notion of leadership, and again, our sights have been on building a no compromise truck. The Ram 1500, the all new Ram 1500, and it's hard to believe we brought that to market almost a year and a half ago, and it's become the most awarded half-ton pickup in America, which really has kind of had a halo effect across the entire brand, Nick, to be honest with you. So through the third quarter, we just got the updated numbers. We're up 23% on a year-over-year basis, which is, when you think about it, is remarkable. But, I can't take credit for it. It's our designers, our engineers. We listened to our truck customers. We asked what they wanted and what they needed and where they saw the future. So the investments we made in our interior, they're world-class interiors. And then you add in the innovation with the 12-inch touchscreen, along with all of the power and the torque and the capability that comes along with it. And again, we're just we've enjoyed some nice sales success, but make no mistake, we're not resting on our laurels. We just launched the 2019 Heavy Duty, which is really starting to make a name for itself in the marketplace as well. And then what you saw here at the State Fair of Texas, we're going to continue to build upon that success with new, interesting, and innovative, features and exterior appearance packages to continue to bring people into the brand.
And I will also tell you that I am extremely excited because I've heard some rumors, and they are just rumors because I know you won't be able to confirm them, that you may have something really cool to show everybody at SEMA, which you always do, which is the sort of the aftermarket show that comes to Vegas. If people want to see these trucks, Mike, where would they go?
The first place I would ask everybody to go is to ramtrucks.com, all one word, ramtrucks.com, and we'll have all of our information there for them to see.
Mike Koval from Ram, congratulations, and I'm excited to see how well these blacked-out trucks do. Coming up, more Our Auto Expert on the way, and we have some surprises in store. Stand by. Here we go.
You're listening to the Our Auto Expert podcast.
Welcome back to the show on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Start a conversation with us at ourautoexpert.com. I've been test driving a couple of vehicles this last week or so. I've been on lots of trips. I traveled to Germany and was in Germany for less time than I actually... what are you doing?
Nothing.
You getting candies out?
Yeah, you want one?
No.
Are you sure? They're the watermelon mint ones?
I'm on the air. I don't need the candies.
Okay.
Do my breath smell coffee? Do I have coffee?
I don't know. Thank God you're over there.
I traveled to Germany after the show last week, and I was in Germany for less time. It took me to get there and then return. But I did get to drive around the Nürburgring, outside the Nürburgring. Didn't actually drive it on the ring. You're rolling your eyes at me. Nope,
not at all.
The Aston Martin Vantage manual.
Now I'm going to roll my eyes.
Okay, just checking. I want to be quite clear about it. It's a pretty amazing V8 piece of machinery.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
They did a really good job at balancing it. In fact, they had some interesting things. The weight changed quite dramatically because they took out all of the stuff with the automatic transmission and put in all the stuff that goes with a manual transmission. So it's actually 51.49 now, 49 at the back, 51. So they had to change the spring rate at the back. If you're not familiar with the Vantage, just go look at it. This is definitely the sexy James Bond car. Although I almost feel like James Bond would have to drive an automatic.
So he could shoot his guns out the window.
Guns, press
the
rockets and shifting at the same time.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, I should have brought that up.
What color did you drive? What color was yours?
God.
I mean, they're just all beautiful.
The car was, well clear of $100,000, and she's asking what color it is. Right?
Yeah, I want to know what color. Was it the red one, or was
Yes,
it like
it was
the
the red
gray
one.
with the yellow?
The grey with the yellow stripe was the 59th anniversary. So Le Mans, they won Le Mans 59, and they won that 60 years ago in an Aston Martin. And to celebrate that win, the 59th Le Mans, they made 59 special editions of the Aston Martin Vantage manual. So they were on display there. I took some pictures, and you can see them on my Facebook account or Twitter account. Just go to Our Auto Expert. You can see all this stuff. I posted them there, and guess how many are for sale? Out of the 59 they made.
Probably none.
Yeah, because they sold them.
I was like,
They sold them all.
Probably in
I was
the
like, hey,
first
here's
day, probably.
Here's the car.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're all sold.
yeah,
Thanks.
of course.
I always find that annoys me.
Bugatti does that too.
Car companies sell out everything way before I get to ever touch it, drive it, feel it.
No.
It's just the way it goes, though.
Sometimes it is.
But the regular one there is, the launch edition. There's several of them around. They are really nice. What have I been driving this week? I came home to drive the G70, which is the Genesis
I love
we
that
drove
car.
at Run to the Sun.
I love that car.
It's a competitor to the BMW 3 Series. I am super impressed by it. For the cost, starting in the $30,000 range, what you actually get compared to the competition, especially the German luxury vehicles.
Oh, yeah.
It is definitely a high-stakes competitor if you're into sedans and sporty sedans. And I think they'll have an SUV based off of it coming between now and the end of the year as well. Plus, also got very sizzled by the fact that I have something that Stuart Fowle from Buick promised us that we would get to drive, the Enclave, the Buick Enclave, which is the 3-row SUV. I think they call it the original luxury 3-row SUV. They may have a lot of arguments with other companies who think. I think Mercedes think they had the first 3-row luxury SUV with the GLC, but this, or the GLE. But this is definitely a very affordable one. And, of course, it has a lot of the features that I really like. That sliding second-row seat. Just one-hand operated. 5-year-old could do it. Would you actually let your kid operate a second-row seat if they were little?
What did you say?
Would you let your kid operate a second-row seat? Like slide it forward on their own?
Why not?
I think a lot of people are always scared the kid will get trapped or, no?
It depends on how smart your kid is.
Get in the back. Pull the lever, get in the back.
Yeah, just get back there.
Put your own car seat in. Was that the kind of mom that you were?
No. Well, it just depends. I mean, my son, they didn't have car seats like when you're 10 years old, when my son was. I mean, it was only like you're 3 or 4 and you're good.
So once they were done, there was no booster seats.
Right. And technically, if I lost some weight, I might have to be in a booster seat.
Is that true?
Yeah. Check it out online.
Are you under the weight limit for a booster seat?
I'm just saying. If I lost a little bit of weight.
I wish I was under the weight to be in a booster seat.
How embarrassing would that be on one of our adventure rides? Excuse me, I need to put a booster seat in.
Oh, well, you won't drive several things like Camaros because you can't see over the dash.
No, the new ones, yeah. I don't like the new Camaro dashes at all.
You can't see see over the dash.
No, they got those big, chunky...
What's it going to be like when you get to 80?
God. I'll get my booster seat out.
There's nobody driving this car. Coming up, a lot more to go. We're going to talk about the luxury Lincoln Continental with the coach doors, plus getting your car ready for winter. That's all coming up on Our Auto Expert.
You're listening to Our Auto Expert.
Catch up with previous episodes of the show on our website, OurAutoExpert.com. You can hear all the past shows, see automotive videos, and read inside stories about your next ride. You'll find it all at OurAutoExpert.com. Of course, welcome to our listeners from coast to coast, whether you're in Chicago, Seattle, Portland, wherever. We welcome you to the show. I have been on 2 very exciting events. You would know them probably better as junkets, but we call them short leads, where I go and drive new vehicles. Got to drive recently the Lincoln Aviator, which is there. They have the Navigator, of course, the big vehicle that's been around for years. Next step down, the Aviator, and then also the Lincoln Corsair, which is a slight step down from that. I was impressed by both of them, the quiet flight, the design, the interiors, well put together. But one of the vehicles that Lincoln is most well known for is the Lincoln Continental. My father-in-law still drives one, insists on having one. I think his is from 1984. He every time he exhausts these vehicles after 10 years and they're no longer viable, he'll go out and find another one that has very low miles on it and buy that. Some of the best years were in the Continental, and Lincoln, of course, on its way back to being one of the premium luxury vehicles or luxury car companies. After a few years of being somewhat dark, the vehicles are outstanding. But to celebrate the great heritage and the 80th anniversary, they came out with a special Continental which had coach doors, but they're bringing it back for 2020. And joining us on the phone, Ted Ryan from Lincoln. Ted, the initial run of this Continental, the 80th anniversary edition, turned a lot of heads, got a lot of people excited. So you've decided to keep the trend going?
We did. It's exciting. The coach doors will be back on the Lincoln Continental. Fully built car. It's virtually a custom coach. That's an extended Lincoln Continental, and it harkens back to the heritage of Lincoln. My actual job title is I'm the Archives and Heritage Brand Manager, so I'm in charge of the great history for Lincoln and for the Ford Motor Company. And I love to tell these stories about the Continental and its role in American culture.
First of all, we should probably get some etiquette things out of the way, and I battle with this all the time. Everybody looks at these vehicles and they want to say suicide doors, which sends a shiver down my spine. And I always like to correct them and say, I think the correct door is coach door. Is there a difference between a coach door and a suicide door? Because suicide doors sound just so depressing.
No, it's just the way the pop culture in the 1960s, the famous 1961 Lincoln Continental with the coach doors, one of the urban legends grew out about it, and it was called suicide doors because the doors might open. I'll guarantee you the technology that's on the doors then and even more so on the doors now, they're never going to open up. They're entirely safe. But coach doors is the term that we like to use at Lincoln, and the new Lincoln 80th Anniversary Edition. There are only 80 of those that were done last year, and it proved so popular that for 2020 we're going to bring back the coach doors again. So
this vehicle, is it going to be a limited run for 2020, or if people want them, if they keep ordering them, are you going to keep making them?
I would. Right now it's a limited edition run for 2020, but wherever there's a demand, usually there's a way to fill that demand. So keep buying them, and then I suspect we'll keep making them for you. Let's talk a little bit about the history of the Continental. So this vehicle, sort of, my first recollection of it was in the 80s, sort of 82, 84, and I think it was especially popular towards the end of the 80s, probably selling around 200,000 a year, I think 88. Maybe earlier than that, maybe later than that. Is that the Continental sort of the time which most people remember it being the star of the Lincoln lineup? There's three different iterations. Well, that would be the fourth. So the Lincoln Continental itself was the brainchild of Edsel Ford, the son of Henry Ford, and he and his wife had traveled to Europe in 1938, and he loved the sleek designs of the cars and noticed that nothing like that existed in the high-end American market. So he and his designer, Bob Gregory, they lengthened the car. They added 12 inches to a Lincoln Zephyr, and they lowered it by 4 inches. And you got the low, sleek look. And that first generation, that Mark I of Lincoln, was 1939 to 1948. There were only 5,000 of those made. Then the one a lot of people know is the Lincoln Mark II, the 56 one. Liz Taylor had one painted to match her eye color. Frank Sinatra had one. Elvis Presley. It was the car of the stars. Then the one I've mentioned already, the 61 Lincoln with the coach doors. Then when you get to the 80s and you get the beautiful, they're more square at this point, and it's a very late 70s, early 80s car. I always think of the French Connection when I think of that particular Lincoln. But to me, Lincoln always matches what the style of the time is. So the beautiful coach door edition of the Continental matches what the world wants in 2020.
And now, I guess back in the 50s or the 30s, they were all handmade because that's the only way cars were made at that point. We didn't really have the modern production line. But you sort of return to that by hand making these vehicles, and definitely the inside is all handmade. Is that add a level of luxury, a level of history to the car?
It does. It takes the car all the way back to what Lincoln has always been. Lincoln is prestige. Lincoln is luxury. Lincoln is a brand that stands above and beyond everything else. And so with the custom builds of all of these coach door Continentals for the 2020, you're getting a car that has been, it lovingly crafted and excellent quality. Because that's the Lincoln DNA. And frankly, that's the Edsel Ford DNA. It goes all the way back to Edsel Ford and his desire to build the world's best car. There's a great Edsel Ford quote. I use it all the time. He said, my father made the most popular car in the world. I want to make the best car in the world. And that's what the 2020 Lincoln Continental is.
And I will also tell you that when you have it out at auto shows, when you first announced the 80th anniversary edition, when you first showed it off, I think it was at New York Auto Show, the amount of pictures that were taken in front of that car, I think it was probably one of the most photographed cars on the floor of the auto show, just because it does make you. It looks like it could be a presidential car. It looks like it's a movie star car. It kind of has that fresh feeling.
It is, and Frank, you mentioned a president's car. Lincoln has always been the car of presidents. It was the car for JFK. It was the car for LBJ. Had a special bar built into his. Nixon actually had a microwave built into his. The Lincoln would customize these beautiful Continentals for the Secret Service, turn them over for the Secret Service for the security aspects of the car, and it was the car of presidents.
I noticed that the 56, I was just trying to see what the value was, and the value ranges from around $30,000 to $100,000 depending on what sort of shape it is. They made a coupe version of the vehicle, a two-door, and was that the only time Lincoln ever made a two-door, or did they make other two-doors in history?
They've made other two-doors. One of the very first Continentals was a two-door as well. So the two-door and the four-door have come and gone. It's interesting with the 56 one. I think if you ask most people what they think of when they think of Continental, they're going to say the 56 or probably the 61 coach door series. And when Lincoln wanted to celebrate its 80th anniversary for the Continental, they went back to the coach door to celebrate the brand and just to show the brand off. They didn't go back to the Mark II, which was so distinctive. The Mark II at that time, by the way, was the most expensive car in the world at over $10,000.
Wow. And
the coach door one is the most expensive car in the Lincoln family. The current 2020 one is.
Okay, so with the 80th anniversary, it looks like you get the Black Label membership. Can you touch on that?
You do. The Black Label membership is special to Lincoln, and essentially it's like having a concierge for your car. If you are broken down, you call. If you need service, you call. We proactively reach out to you to arrange to have your car cared for. You mentioned my favorite Lincoln. If you're going to give me two Lincolns, I'm going to take the 61 coach door, and I'm going to take the Corsair. I love the new way the Lincoln style and style DNA, luxury DNA, brought over to a small crossover. It's a perfect size for me, and I love the attention to detail, and I love the Black Label that would come with the current Continental as well. It's luxurious service for a luxurious car.
It's funny you say that, because the Corsair happens to be my favorite Lincoln too. I just think when you get so much luxury in such a small package, it's and you get a great performance too. I was surprised at how the Corsair performs, especially as you put it in sport mode, which I have to tell you, I never take it out of sport mode, but I probably burn through way more gas than I need to. But putting it into sport mode, I was surprised that such a small compact SUV or small SUV could actually perform as well as it could, with all of those accoutrements of the luxury on board at the same time. With the Continental with the coach doors, do you get to customize it somewhat, or do they all come the same?
You do get to customize via color and via trim kits and via interiors. And for the 80th anniversary one, there were special name badges that were applied to the car. So you do have choices on the look and feel, the final look and feel of the car. But essentially, all of the experiences are going to be the same, except for the different trims and different colors.
And I like the idea of being able to choose. A lot of times when you get sort of limited edition vehicles, you don't get to choose any of that. They come as one way, and the livery comes as one way. Is there room to put a microwave in the back of one of these?
Honestly, when I sat in it, when it was premiered, I thought, as I'm getting in the car, I was thinking to myself, good grief, Shaquille O'Neal could sit in this car and not even... Yes, you could fit a small house in it. It's an enormous... And the interior is just so plush, and it's an amazing car. It is a luxury to find. I think Edsel Ford would be happy looking down at the 80th Anniversary Coach Door Edition or the 2020 Coach Door Edition because, as he said, he wanted to build the best car in the world, and it fits that bill.
And many of our listeners, like Seattle, Portland, Chicago, they deal with winter as well. I know that one of the auto show had white carpets in or cream carpets in there. Please tell me that they come in a darker color.
It does come in a darker color. You can get it darker. And believe me, in Detroit, with all the snow we get, you're not going to want white carpets either.
I was going to get. I'm coming to Detroit on the 6th. I should have asked them to let me drive the Continental with the coach doors. That would have been fun, too. All right. So, if someone wants to buy them, what price are we talking about, and what sort of availability, and how do they go about ordering one?
They need to go to Lincoln.com, and you can look up the details on how to order one. Availability will be there. The price is north of $100,000, but it's going to be worth every penny because essentially you're getting a custom-built car. And
the likelihood is that there's limited numbers, right?
Yes, there will be limited numbers, but first come, first serve, and I would not dally. The 80th anniversary, we only made 80 of them, and they were gone very quick.
All right. Well, look forward to it. I know that, Ted, that Lincoln will have some news at the LA Auto Show, which is coming up in a few weeks' time or so. Ted, thanks for joining us, talking about a car which I would very much like to see in my collection, the new Lincoln Continental Special Edition with the coach doors. It's returning for 2020. And, of course, as Ted said, you can go to Lincoln.com and you can actually see the vehicle there. You can also find out how to order one. If you want a little taste of the 1960s, you can buy it all over again with Lincoln. Coming up, we're going to be talking about how to winterize your vehicle for the upcoming winter season. Mercedes-Benz have a new GLC and Toyota have a new Mirai. All that on Our Auto Expert.
You're listening to the Our Auto Expert podcast.
Locally created, nationally celebrated from the northwest to the southeast, this is America's Car Radio Show. If it has a throttle, we'll feature it on air, online, on mobile, or on smart speaker. This is OurAutoExpert.com. I'm your host, Nick Miles, along with Truck Girl Jan. You can hear previous episodes of the show at OurAutoExpert.com, and then we've got years and years of them there, so you'll be entertained. In fact, why don't you just get rid of everything else you listen to, your music streaming and everything else, and you can just listen to Our Auto Expert on the way. Yeah, on the way to it. Did you just break the microphone? Stop playing with it. It's like being with a 5-year-old in the studio, honestly. I always talk a lot constantly about how it was bringing up as a single mom, bringing up your son, and then and now I wonder how your mom felt bringing you up. Oh, Jen's fiddling with this again.
Oh, I'm the same.
Breaking that again. I've been spending an interestingly large amount of time with Perry Stern from MSN and Our Auto Expert. I seem to... Perry, it's almost like I run into you at bars all across the country.
Perry's awesome, though.
Yeah, we do tend to seem to be on the same programs pretty regularly lately.
You, of course, write for MSN and Our Auto Expert, and I do the TV and the radio part, and you do the wordy part, which is I'm not very good at. But you
Did
are
you say
very
wordy
good
nerdy?
Wordy in the pictures that don't move.
Yes, the
wordy nerdy.
The stills and the wordy part. Not wordy nerdy, but wordy part. So
I'm the social wordy nerdy.
oh yes, and that's right. Jen does our social media too. So you're all wordy nerdy
I'm a
people.
wordy nerdy.
Perry, winter coming up. It looks like that, especially if you live somewhere north of the Mason-Dixon line, you should probably start thinking about making sure your car can make it through the winter. Nothing like being stranded on the side of the road in freezing cold temperatures or icy roads or rainy roads and not being prepared for it. So winterizing your car, is it still a thing, or just because I don't know, most people don't bother. I mean, I winterize my motorcycles, but should I be winterizing my car?
Yeah, maybe winterize isn't the right term. Winterize in my head is putting it away for winter, and what you're doing, for your car is basically getting it ready to deal with winter. And it's, there's so many different things that you need to, think about. Tires is a huge part of it, whether you're going to deal with snow, with wet roads. But when it gets cold, tires tend to lose some traction. So you want to make sure that, your tires are up to pressure. For every 10 degrees drop in temperature, you're going to lose about a pound of tire pressure. So you want to check it throughout the winter. And tire tread. You do want to do the penny test, which, you stick the penny in with Abe Lincoln's head upside down, and if you can see the top of his head, you don't have enough tread, and you should be looking at new tires.
That's a good one.
All right, I'm writing this down here. I'm making a list, by the way. How do I know what pressure my tires should be? Because of course, I'm asking these questions with tongue in cheek, but I'm asking them as somebody who may not know much about cars would ask them. So thinking about this, the only time I ever, or most people ever, worry about how much pressure is in their tire is when they get that little sign on the dash that says flat or low. But how do I know?
Right, which is a little too late at that point. So what you want to do is look inside the door jamb of the driver's side door, and there'll be there's like a little plaque there, and it actually tells you what the recommended tire pressure is for your car.
And then you just go to the gas station.
Don't look at the tire. Look at the actual car, the little plaque on the door. It's actually inside the door jamb, and you want to get the tires up to that pressure. It will drive so much better, and aside from giving you better traction during the winter, it actually helps improve your fuel economy too.
Now, I've noticed that if I ride my motorcycles with low air in the tire, it really, really changes the amount of fuel consumed. So cars are obviously a lot more. So, all right, so I need a penny with Lincoln's head on it, which I think they all have, and then I also need a tire pressure monitor.
It doesn't have Lincoln's head. It's not a penny.
No. All right, I'm checking my change. Yep, they all got Lincoln's head on. We're good. All right, so now I have that. What else am I doing?
So you want to check your battery. Make sure there's no corrosion around the battery connections, mainly because any kind of corrosion is going to cut back on how much power is getting to your car. And during the winter, when it starts getting cold, your battery, you're going to need a bit more power coming out of the battery. The batteries, tend to lose power during the colder months. And so if your car right now is doing that vroom, vroom, getting kind of slow to get started, this might be the time to think about swapping out batteries.
And they're pretty easy to do, right? You can actually do it yourself most of the time. You can take it off, go to your local dealer will do it if you don't want to do it yourself, but you can also take the battery in to somewhere like Batteries Plus, or you can take it into an automotive store, and they will swap out your battery for the new one, and then you can just mount it in there, and all it takes is a wrench, really, to get the old battery on and get the new one in, right?
Yeah, I mean, some are a little harder to get to than others, and there's some strange cars that have batteries behind the back seats and things like that. But
all right, wait a second.
Owner's manual is the answer to everything.
Strange cars. Who has a battery behind the seat? Wait a second. The smart car does, doesn't it?
Actually, for a while, Mercedes had them under the back passenger seat, seat. I don't know why, but I remember having to jump start a Mercedes and having to open the back door and move the back seat in order to jump start it.
That's weird.
What was this, like a really old Mercedes? Because I can't think of anybody that doesn't have them in the...
It wasn't that long ago. I mean, within the last 10, 15 years.
Wow, crazy.
So I guess that is really old, maybe. I don't know.
The windshield wipers is also something else you should probably change too, correct?
Was that correct? The windshield wipers?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, windshield wipers also. When you start having to move snow off of them, and you're going to be using them a lot more often, especially if you're driving in places where they put salt on the roads. After about 3 minutes going down the freeway, suddenly you can't see again. So you're going to be using them a lot. So you want to make sure that your wipers are relatively new. Those are also very easy to replace and relatively inexpensive compared to the accident that will happen when you can't see out your windshield.
Again, you can usually go to pretty much the same place that you go to change your battery. They'll also have windshield wipers. You just tell them the year and the model of your car, and they can usually give them. They're sort of a snap-on thing nowadays, right? You don't need any tools.
Right, for most cars, yeah, there's no tools necessary. And again, owner's manual or even the windshield wipers, when you buy the replacements, they typically have directions on them how to do it.
All right.
At the same time, what you want to make sure that the washer fluid you're using is an antifreeze type washer fluid, especially in the colder areas. If you don't, and I grew up in Chicago area, if you just put water or something that's just soap, and it's very cold outside, you'll basically be spraying ice onto your windshield.
That's not a good thing. And by the way, if you put an antifreeze windshield wiper in, make sure it's pet friendly as well, because antifreeze is absolutely toxic to pets. Stay around, Perry, because we're going to talk about the Mercedes GLC. That's all coming up as Our Auto Expert continues here.
You're listening to Our Auto Expert.
Catch up with previous episodes of the show on our website, ourautoexpert.com. You can hear all the past shows for our automotive videos, read inside car stories about your next ride, and you'll find it all at ourautoexpert.com. On the phone with us, Perry Stern, who writes for MSN Autos, along with Our Auto Expert. Perry and I were on an event in upstate New York recently for the Mercedes-Benz GLC. The most successful Mercedes-Benz in the nation is the GLC. Sells more versions. Perry, are you an SUV or the SUV coupe kind of guy?
I'm more of the SUV. The SUV, I think the styling looks better. It actually has more useful space. There's more headroom in the back seat. There's more cargo space. And actually, it's lighter, so it can be quicker than the coupe, even though the coupe technically is the sportier one.
Except the coupe makes you look more sexy.
If you think so. No, it's interesting that the SUV actually is more useful and is less expensive as well. I mean, the SUV starts around, what, 42.5. You can get a front-wheel drive version of the GLC 300 in the SUV. The coupe is only available with all-wheel drive, so that bumps the price up to about $50,000 if you're going to go into the GLC 300 coupe. But the fun ones are, of course, the ones that say AMG in the name. The GLC 63 and the 63S are ridiculously fast. I mean, they go 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds, which is what supercars used to do.
How many times?
This is a 5-passenger SUV.
How many times did you do that, by the way, on the ride and drive?
Oh, only up to the speed limit. That's all I have to do.
I can tell you, I think they warned us quite severely on this ride and drive that there was an awful lot of New York State troopers out doing a lot of speed checks around the way.
Quite a few.
Yeah, I think the camera crew got a speeding ticket, but none of the journalists did, which is,
Yeah, and that's hard. It's hard to keep it under wraps. When you're driving it's still an SUV, so it doesn't really attract attention, except it'll go 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds in the coupe. It is very fast.
And they're very roomy.
And it was very interesting to see that this is the same 0 to 60 time that 10 years ago the $300,000 V12 Mercedes SL65 Black Series did.
In a sense, too, it negates.
We've come a long way.
It negates ever buying an old car, doesn't it? When you see the price and what a new car can do compared to an old one, then old cars sell for nostalgia. But when you look at, I don't know, I look at some new cars and I'm just like thinking, holy hell, how is this possible? How are all these things possible with these cars when even 5 years ago the technology didn't exist in half of these cars that make them able to do such incredible things? And the other thing I always think about when I'm on these ride and drives, and I'm sure it's crossed your mind, they always tell us at the beginning, they do this sort of what they call housekeeping road briefing of the route, and they say, listen, the cars are ours, the tickets are yours, this is where you're going to drive, this is what you're going to do, be careful, there's a lot of police out there, and don't do anything irresponsible. And then they give you this huge road where you can see for about 10 miles in each direction and there's nothing coming and the speed limit's like 45. What are you supposed to do?
Well, you're supposed to go the speed limit. Isn't that what you do?
Yeah, but it's like putting a cupcake in front of a 5-year-old princess, a pink cupcake, and saying, don't touch it.
Say, don't eat it.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost impossible to resist. And I may have accidentally gone over the speed limit a couple of times, just saying.
Just
But
accidentally.
I have to say, there are some really cool features in this car.
Yeah.
One that I've got to call out is this Augmented Navigation, which basically, it has regular navigation on the screen, but when you get close to a turn, it brings up the front-facing camera, superimposes the navigation over the view to the front, and basically
Signposts.
superimposes the name of the road with the arrows pointing the direction you're supposed to go.
Yeah, it's almost like having
I thought was the most amazing thing.
a virtual signpost appear in the middle of the road on the camera and tells you where you turn here. So instead of looking at a map which has an arrow, it just has a signpost saying this is your turn, and it's a live camera. I think my only criticism of that system is I'd like it to come up a little sooner. Sometimes it doesn't kind of come up quite soon enough, and if you're traveling at 55 miles an hour and you have to make a turn, it's not always that easy.
Yes, we probably missed that same turn you're thinking of. When you are going highway speeds, it does tend to alert you a little too slow. On backcountry roads, though, it was fantastic. I mean, when there's little tiny roads that we're just driven past, never thinking that could possibly be your turn, the nav will actually show you where it is.
Yeah, no, I do love that feature about it. The other thing I'd have to get your opinion on is one of the features that they introduced in the A-Class quite recently is the MBUX, which is Mercedes-Benz User Experience. That's what it stands for. And it's really a sort of a real language, virtual interactive machine where you can talk to the car. The trouble is the trigger word, like you would say, and I know all these people with their radios on now are going to hate me, but when you say, hey, Alexa, when you do that, your Alexa triggers, if you use the word, hey, Mercedes, or just Mercedes, it often comes on. And so having a conversation about the car you're driving in the car is often quite difficult.
It was quite annoying, actually. And we started referring to it as the German company that starts with M, because every time we would say Mercedes, it would interrupt whatever the radio was doing or the navigation to say, how can I help you? Which is very kind of it, but... and the problem is any word you change it to, at some point it's going to be, unless it's a complete nonsense word, it's going to be in a sentence. And it is true, you can change it to whatever words or whatever triggered word you want. But in my opinion, it's not that hard to push a button. I would rather push a button to activate it than to have it listen to everything I'm saying.
I do like the fact that, though, the features that it has, apart from the trigger word, the features it has is you could ask it pretty much anything. And if it doesn't already, if it's not able to calculate the answer, so you can ask it math questions and it will do math questions immediately for you. Like you can say, hey, Mercedes, what's 5,654, what's the square root? And it will do that calculation instantaneously and tell you. However, if it doesn't know the answer to your question, it will go to the internet to try and find it. Now, we've tested this, and it went to the internet and found some things that we weren't expecting it to come back with. So I can say no more than that, only that I almost had to be taken out of the car because I was laughing so hard on the floor of the car.
That's
But
awesome.
it is...
They do call it an entertainment system.
Yes, it is. That was very entertaining. Just don't ask it several things because it will answer. And if you have kids in the car, it could be highly embarrassing.
Jeez.
Yes, it did.
I'm not even going to ask what you asked it.
No, maybe I'll tell you offline. But
Did
just
it pull up Urban Dictionary or what?
no, I went online and looked for what I was asking, and which
Okay.
actually wasn't necessarily
simpler
bad, but what it found was bad. So
I mean, you can also say, hey, Mercedes, where's the closest Starbucks? And it will find it and then navigate you to it, which is kind of cool.
and sort of fairly
And less bad for the kids.
right. But it has fairly more levels than that because you can say things like, hey, Mercedes, find me an Asian restaurant but not sushi with 5 stars within 10 miles. And if it's available, it'll find it for you.
Yeah.
And
So
has
it does have
sense
some
of
cool
humor.
features. It's just, there's still something to be said for it interrupting constantly.
And of course, it doesn't respond to very well like, hey, shut up, Mercedes. Although I did I did like it when I said, hey, Mercedes, tell me a joke, and it says, I can't, my engineers were German. I thought that was funny. But
That is one of the best parts about it. I agree.
It-
But overall, it's a great premium, crossover. It's 5 passengers, so there's a lot of cargo space. It's easy to drive. The 300 is relatively fuel efficient, and if you want a sports car too, you get basically sports car handling in a 5-passenger crossover.
It's an all-in-one package. What's the starting price?
Starting price is about $45 for the front-wheel drive SUV, but when you load up an AMG 63 or 63S, which is even more powerful, you're talking $90, close to $100,000.
Oh, chump change. A week's wages if you work at MSN.com, right?
Yeah, that's why I'm still on the radio with you.
Oh, pal, right. There's like a Perry, where can we read your stuff?
You can see it, as you mentioned, on MSN. You can see it on our Auto Expert or on AutoNXT.net.
All right, Perry Stern, thank you for joining us. If you want to read some of Perry's articles, feel free to go to Our Auto Expert, where you can also hear many times that Perry has joined us on the radio to talk about different products and some trips around the world. I'm sure I will run into you. In fact, I think our next date is in Japan in a couple of weeks' time. Perry Stern, thanks for joining us. Coming up, we're going to talk about Toyota and the fact that they have rolled out a new Mirai and a whole bunch of new hybrids. That's on Our Auto Expert as we continue.
You're listening to the Our Auto Expert podcast.
Welcome back to the show. You can, of course, check us out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Start a conversation with us. They're all Our Auto Expert. He's a regular on our show. He comes and talks about some fun and interesting vehicles that he's been driving. Brian Armstead, you'll be able to read his stuff all over the world, and he joins us today on the phone. Brian, you went to a special event that Toyota put on recently, where not only did they unveil some new forms of their vehicles, especially their alternative fuel cell vehicles, but they really talked about the history and how they're forging forward with their hybrids and also their fuel cell vehicles.
Well, my work is done. You just done my whole segment. And, yeah, what else you want to talk? No, but we can joke about Nick and Jen. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on again. I really enjoyed the program. We can joke about fuel economy and V12s and twin turbos and all this other stuff. But the reality of it is that in time, and we don't know what the answer to that question is when, we will run out of fossil fuel. The big straw that we have in the center of the earth, we keep sucking on it, and eventually it's going to run dry. So manufacturers like Toyota, Hyundai, Nissan, BMW, Tesla, they're all developing alternative fuel strategies. So Toyota had us in Greensboro, North Carolina for their evolution, meaning electric, evolution. So they've chosen a different pathway to electricity. Of course, they have their hybrid vehicles, which have been sensationally popular over the years. If you remember the original 2000 Toyota Prius, I mean, that car was just plain Jane. It looked like a Corolla on steroids. So they changed the body style of the Prius to make it look more radical, and sales just went through the roof. And I'm at a car show, so if you hear a motorcycle revving up in the background, that's all.
It's all good. It adds to the ambiance of what you're talking about.
Great. So, the hybrids from Toyota and from Honda, they took this really radical styling approach with weird angles and weird wheels, and they almost screamed, "Hey, I'm green. I want to be that person that sets the standard." It became wildly popular. They got special provisions or access to HOV lanes in California and here on the East Coast in Maryland, D.C., Virginia area. And it just became a cult car, the Toyota Prius. So Toyota wisely started applying this technology to their other vehicles, Camry, RAV4, Avalon, and now Corolla. So they have a full cadre of hybrid vehicles that you can go from, mild hybrid to full hybrid to plug-in hybrid. And they've been wildly successful with the whole technology. Moving forward, they're not committed to pure electric technology like Tesla, like Audi, like some other companies. Hyundai, Honda, and Toyota have developed fuel cell vehicles, and they think that hydrogen, Nick and Jen, will be the answer moving forward. So we got a chance to see the 2021 Mirai It looks really nice, guys. It doesn't look like a crazy-looking Toyota hybrid. I mean, some of their designs are really, really radical. These huge grills and kind of funky snorkels in the front and all kinds of sharp angles. This looks like a beautiful Lexus car. It's really extremely well done. We did not get a chance to drive the 2021 model. That's going to come next year, the opportunity. I'm sure you'll be on that program, Nick. But we did get a chance to drive the first generation Mirai, which does the job. You know, the styling to me is a little over the top. It's very cramped inside for a big guy. But the second gen Mirai will make 30% more horsepower. And I think it's important to let folks know just how hydrogen fuel cell cars create power. I was on a radio show in Atlanta earlier today, and one of the callers called in and says, yes, these are the cars that run on water. So there's still a lot of education, Nick and Jen, that needs to be completed. No, hydrogen cars do not run on water. They use hydrogen fuel, hydrogen liquid, hydrogen gas, and they combine that with oxygen to turn it into electricity. And the output is water vapor. So they produce water, but they don't run on water. And I think that as Nick and Jen, as we move forward into all of these new alternative propulsion vehicles, then there'll be more forums on educating consumers, not only on radio shows like this one, but from the manufacturers themselves and YouTube videos and through, webinars and different kinds of forums to help educate people.
And certain kind of educations, Brian. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk more about how hybrid will become the norm, especially with Toyota, and less of a fringe technology, because it looks like everybody's going to have hybrid vehicles. That's coming up on Our Auto Expert.
You're listening to Our Auto Expert.
Locally celebrated, nationally created. This is the Northwest and the Southeast in America. It's the Car Radio Show. If it has a throttle, we'll feature it on air, online, on mobile, and on smart speaker. This is Our Auto Expert. I'm your host, Nick Miles. On the phone with us, Brian Armstead, who's talking about the future of hybrids. In fact, he went to a Toyota event and looked at some of the latest alternative fuel vehicles, including the 2021 Mirai. Brian, one of the big pieces of news that Toyota announced recently was the 2020 Toyota hybrids and EVs get a 10-year, 150,000-mile battery warranty. That's something new and really sort of demonstrates that car companies now are more really more convinced and happy to show off these technologies as being a more solid alternative to or a more solid mainstream fuel, rather than what it used to be, is where hybrids and plug-in electrics used to be something that were sort of a fringe technology at some point.
And that people were afraid of the technology. What's the cost going to be when it's time to replace the battery? And then they get Toyota Priuses that have 200,000 miles plus on original battery packs, which is pretty phenomenal when you consider the charge-discharge, all the charge-discharge cycles that a hybrid vehicle goes through in its lifetime. So the previous warranty was 8 years, 100,000 miles, and as you said, now 10 years, 150,000 miles on all 2020 vehicles beyond. And again, Doug Murtha, he gave a really cool presentation. They had three experts, including a woman engineer who's a senior engineer for the Mirai platform. This is a spectacular presentation by Toyota. BEV vehicles are 1% of the U.S. market, and the median price for a battery electric vehicle BEV is $70,000. So, nobody's really, there are people out there who are early adopters of this technology, but nothing has really caught on yet. And Toyota does not want to go down that road because lithium-ion technology is still not fully developed. The battery capacity is just not there for the kind of range that they want for their vehicles long term. And they wonder what the impact on the environment will be. What is the end-of-life cycle impact that lithium has on the environment? And then you also have to understand that people may end up going to war over lithium, much in the way that nations fight over oil, because China has pretty much wrapped up all of the lithium resources in the world. They went into Africa, bought up all the lithium mines there. They control the lithium market. which is one of the reasons that we're in this terrorist battle with the Chinese government because of the control of lithium. I mean, it's the world's desire for propulsion and for transportation. Once oil runs out, will be really controlled by only a handful of people, much like the diamond market for years was controlled through the De Beers syndicate in South Africa. So that's the kind of impact that Toyota was looking at. It's like, no, we don't want to go that route. We want to go hydrogen. There are 10 million metric tons of hydrogen produced in this country every year. And when you think about it, Nick, you've seen hydrogen buses before. I mean, you've seen hydrogen-powered trucks in commercial vehicles. This technology has been on the road for a while. And in big metropolises like D.C. and Atlanta, where they have hybrid buses and hydrogen-powered buses, the hydrogen-powered vehicles get 30% more efficiency and have a 30% lower operating cost than the hybrid-powered vehicles. So the technology is there. So what's the big problem, Nick and Jen? Infrastructure.
Right.
You know, out there on the West Coast, if you go south of Portland, keep on going until you get to Southern California, you'll find hydrogen charging stations. That's about it. There are practically none on the East Coast. We had one in Washington, D.C. We may have 4 or 5 in the entire Maryland, Virginia, D.C. area. There are practically none, no infrastructure on the East Coast. So that remains the biggest problem as we move forward with this type of technology.
In the space of time, looking at where we are with lithium-ion batteries for those hybrid vehicles, we're still early on probably in the development, even though we see hybrids as something you can walk into almost every car dealership and buy. And that was really highlighted this week by the development of the lithium-ion battery earning the Nobel Prize for Chemistry, awarded to 3 scientists who won that this year, making of the modern battery and making it possible. But it's still evolving. There are still companies now who are looking at alternative energies. I know that Kia and Hyundai are looking at lithium polymer batteries as a possibility and something they're using in some stages in their vehicles. This is still something that seems to be evolving every year, but at the same time is becoming cheaper and cheaper and more inexpensive. And I think we're sort of at the stage now where you talk about hybrid vehicles being the same price or only up to $1,500 more than the gasoline version, which now actually starts to make sense, because if you're saving 5 to 10 miles, on a gallon, it actually makes sense to buy one of these, and you could actually pay it off in the lifetime of a vehicle. Whereas the original hybrid vehicles, you'd find it pretty impossible paying $10,000, $15,000 more to ever make that a financial sense of making that sort of decision.
You're so right. I mean, Toyota Avalon hybrid, Toyota Camry hybrid. These are full-size sedans, and the Avalon has a lot of luxury, almost Lexus-like levels of luxury, and yet they can still get 40 miles a gallon plus in steady-state driving, city and highway combined. That's phenomenal for a vehicle with that kind of power output. These hybrid, they get up and go. You have the gasoline power, then you have the hybrid assist in some capacities, and they're really impressive on the road. We drove the Avalon, we drove the Camry, we drove the Corolla, the RAV4, and the Highlander. All of their hybrids were made available to us, as I stated, the first generation Mirai. And I think Toyota and Audi and Hyundai and Kia and all these manufacturers, Ford, when they had their C-Max out, Chevy, when they had that terrific Bolt out. I don't know why they killed that. That's a topic for another day. We're starting to see the development of these technologies. And take Nissan, for example. The Leaf used to give you range anxiety like you wouldn't believe. You go, it says 100 miles, you go 20 miles, and the lights start blinking. Now they developed a better battery for the Nissan Leaf. It's a legitimate electric car now. So, you're right. Nascent technology, a lot of developments to come. Lithium polymer, hopefully, will eliminate some of the fire risks of lithium-ion that people have experienced with Teslas and with batteries and laptops on planes and things of that nature. So, yes, the science is, Toyota, for example, spends $1 million a day on research and development. You better believe the other manufacturers are spending just as much or maybe, an equal amount of money in putting effort into developing these alternative fuel technologies. Those are an exciting time to be in the industry and watching it grow. And, stay tuned. There's going to be more of this good stuff to come.
Yeah, and talking about that, the LA Auto Show, which is on the docket for coming up in November, will be the place that Toyota unveils the 2021 RAV4 and their first look at that plug-in for 2021. The RAV4, of course, when we zoom out to 10,000 miles and look at it, they're selling 450,000 of these vehicles in every single year. That's a huge amount. And now to have a hybrid version of it, a plug-in hybrid version of it, means that we're really sort of making moves where we see such a huge high volume SUV being available in a plug-in hybrid. So now we have battery, we have battery electric EVs, BEVs, BEVs, we have hydrogen vehicles, of which there is 2 or 3 available. Honda have one, Hyundai have one, Toyota have one. We have the hybrids and the plug-in hybrids. So it's not so much, and one of the things that impressed me so much is when I talked to several of the specialists around this, they said, when you stop calling them electric versions of the vehicles and just call it the Toyota RAV4, but I have the plug-in hybrid version, then we will know that this technology has finally arrived. And now there's so many of these vehicles available, and yet still so much more to come. 200 BEVs are going to be available for sale in the next 2 years. That's a lot of vehicles.
It is. And again, their Tokyo 2020 will kind of be the coming out party for the Mirai. So, let's see where it goes. I mean, this is really, like I said, an exciting time. The technology is growing in leaps and bounds. It's not taking incremental steps forward anymore. They're taking quantum steps forward, and it can only get better. Like you said, with a mainstream SUV, small SUV like the RAV4, it can only work wonders for the perceptions to help erase the negative perceptions that some people may have about hybrid electric vehicles. So it's all good.
Where do you think fuel economy is going to be? Because right now, some of the sort of the best, obviously depending on the size of the vehicle, but Prius, started off with this, we're hitting 45 miles a gallon, but really we're lucky to hit 50, and now they're claiming, 54 is what they're getting just out of the Prius alone. That's not what you can actually get. That's what the government say you should have on the fuel economy numbers. Are we going to see 60 miles a gallon? Are we going to see 70 miles a gallon out of some of these hybrids?
Absolutely. Again, as the technology improves, they'll be able to lighten chassis with all the new polymer structures, carbon fiber composite structures that are going to come forth in the future. CAFE is still on the books. I know the rules have been, people are trying to change the rules for CAFE, but manufacturers are still working. CAFE means corporate average, for your listeners, corporate average fuel economy requirements that the government mandated all manufacturers meet certain milestones by certain years. Even if the CAFE requirements are rolled back by the current administration, manufacturers are like, no, we're going to move forward with our technology because eventually there'll be another administration and then they'll change things and then we got to start all over. So we're just going to see growth in body construction. Aluminum will be more prevalent. Plastic cars, high quality, high tensile strength plastics, and polymers. Everything is just going to be almost Jetson-like in terms of the march forward in technology. It can only happen that way.
Right.
As we move forward to autonomous cars and self-driving, highways that are, highway grids that are self-driving, not self-driving, you know what I mean, smart highways.
Right.
It can only work with vehicles that will help sustain a green posture towards the future. Global warming, I don't care what your thoughts of it are, some of the science is very real. So the OEMs are working very hard to make sure that they're not left in the dust, because can you imagine if the auto industry collapsed today or tomorrow? The world economy would be in an uproar. It would just be upside down.
25.
So they've got to stay relevant. They've got to stay on top of technology, and it's only going to get better.
25%, of course, of all advertising dollars come from automotive. I know that because I happen to be in the broadcast field, I guess. Brian, it's always a great pleasure to have you on. I know we've got a lot to look forward to over the next few weeks. We'll look forward to having you back on. Where can we read some of your articles and some of your research?
Well, you can. I'm putting together an article for DriveLatino.com. You can reach me at DetroitGuru.com, and also you can reach me on Instagram at RoadGearSun, big old sun in the sky.
All right. Brian Armstead, a pleasure to have you on. I'm also very happy to call you one of my friends and a great auto journalist. We'll have Brian on again
Great
soon.
being with you guys.
Thanks, Brian. Take care. Have a great week. You can, of course, catch up with previous episodes of the show at OurAutoExpert.com.
You've been listening to Our Auto Expert with Nick Miles. Find all the show episodes at OurAutoExpert.com. Please follow us on all social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Our Auto Expert, and message us for a quick and witty response.